Okay. We're going to try that again. You've probably never come across a pushy Brit before, but here I am. How is everyone? We're good? Okay, good. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Radha, or RB as I'm generally known. I'm managing partner at thinkBeyond. It's an organisation that helps organisations and leaders drive social impact and sustainability in sport and through sport. And as part of that, I have the very, very great privilege of running ESPN's Billie Jean King Youth Leadership Award programme and supporting some of the young people that you will get to hear from today. So yesterday, at the end of the session, Kevin closed us out with these words: don't talk about it, be about it. And today, we get to hear from, learn from, and celebrate 3 young people who are all about being it. In this session, mobilizing students for action. So over the next 45 minutes, you're going to hear real examples of how 3 remarkable young people have created movements to ensure equity in school sports. And then how those movements have helped shape and create the Project Play's new School Sports Equity Toolkit, supported by ESPN Corporate Citizenship. So you heard a bit about that toolkit from Kevin earlier. You can access it in the companion content to the conference. It's on the Project Play website. I highly recommend you look at it, but don't look at it now, okay? Don't look at it now, because this panel is going to bring that to life for you. And we're going to bring it to life for you through incredible, incredible stories. At the end, we may have some time for questions. So if you select this session on the app and post your questions, we'll try and get to them. So that's the housekeeping done. Let's meet the people that are genuinely making a difference in school sports. So please welcome onto the stage Noor Alexandria Abukaram. She is the founder of Let Noor Run. Noor is a student athlete from Ohio. She faced religious discrimination during a cross-country meet, and that led her to founding Let Noor Run to fight discrimination and advance gender equity for women. She was honored with the Billie Jean King Youth Leadership Award in 2022, and today she is a student at the Ohio State University. Give it up for Noor. There. You came in. Hi. Second up, we have Ashley Badis. Ashley is a student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She's a plaintiff in a potential landmark Title IX case that alleges widespread and systemic discrimination against female athletes at James Campbell High School, the largest public school in Hawaii. Ashley, big round of applause for Ashley. And last, but by no means least, we have Matt Diaz, founder of the Fair Play Coalition. Matt's commitment to sports equity led him to found the Fair Play Coalition. It's a group of lawyers, non-profits, and students that have helped bring 200 new sports teams to public schools in New York City. He is a 2019 Billie Jean King Youth Leadership Award winner. He is a Project Play alumnus. You might have heard from him last year, and a senior at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania. Big up to Matt. Okay, so one of the things we heard this morning was that inspiration comes from an emotional connection, right? And I am very privileged to know the stories of these 3 incredible young people. But we are going to spend time right now so you can hear these stories as well. And I'm going to start with you, Noor. Noor, you were disqualified from your high school cross-country race. Talk to us about that day, what happened as a result of that, and where we are today at Let Noor Run.
So it was back in 2019. I was disqualified from the district invitationals in Findlay, Ohio for wearing the hijab. That day, I remember I had finished my 5K, and I went to go check my individual placings, and as I was running my finger down the list, I noticed that my name wasn't there, and I didn't have an official time. And that's when my teammates informed me that I had been disqualified. So since then, I was 16 years old. I was extremely humiliated, and I just didn't know what to do. And so it took looking to my mentors and them saying, look, let's share this story and see what we can do, what kind of change we can make. So that's when I decided to share my story. I shared it on Facebook, and then it garnered a global uproar. And it wasn't until the season ended and I had some quiet time that I was able to say, okay, I told my story, all these people heard it, what now? What can I do with these newfound connections? And that's when we decided to launch the Let Noor Run initiative, fighting discrimination and injustice and doing what we love. And since then, we've been working on inclusivity in sport. And we just passed a law in the state of Ohio that prohibits organizations from implementing discriminatory policies on the basis of religion.
Amazing. I have many questions about that, and we are going to come back to those, but I'd love to hear from you, Ashley. So what were you seeing in school sports in your community? Do you know, I'm going to go to Matt, and I'm going to come back to you, Ashley. Matt, okay, you spoke at the Project Play Summit last year about the lawsuit that you were involved with, that you won in New York City. So for those people that are unfamiliar, you just tell us what's happened between last year and this year, and a little bit about the Fair Play Coalition.
Yeah, so the Fair Play Coalition is a group of students, advocates, organizations that fight for sports equity, especially in New York City. And so in New York City, there was a problem where we saw many schools did not have sports at all. The conversations that we were having in Aspen is like, how do we get the quality coaches, or how do we get the spaces? But the problem in New York City was way different. We were asking, why don't we even have a sport? And so that created the Fair Play Coalition. And so I'm honored to have been invited last year to speak about the Fair Play Coalition and the lawsuit that we had. And so we developed a toolkit so we can replicate the same work that I did in New York City across the nation.
Fantastic. Just between you speaking last year and where we are today, just give us a quick snapshot of what's happened in that lawsuit.
So we won the lawsuit.
Stop there. We won the lawsuit. Round of applause. Carry on.
We won the lawsuit. It's a class action lawsuit. So now in New York City, it's required by 2024 to get 200 new sports teams for highly segregated schools that are Black and Latino. And so it's going to happen.
Amazing. Thank you. And Ashley, coming to you, what were you seeing in school sports in your community that prompted you to bring up concerns about gender equity, and what made you decide to elevate those to a Title IX complaint?
Just for a little background, I played swim and water polo throughout all 4 years of high school, and it was really once I played water polo that I noticed a lot of sex-based discrimination in my high school, and this included lack of support from my school, and it was evident in the lack of equipment that we were given. Our caps were always broken, outdated, and the refs would always tell us that we need to get new ones. We didn't have uniforms. We didn't even have a practice facility. So it was during my junior year that we were actually practicing at a public beach, and we started our season having not been in a pool. And it was also shown in other girls' sports. We weren't the only team going through these inequities, because meanwhile, while we're struggling to just get a pool and for girls to be able to use the bathroom, I think the obvious issue is that we never had a female locker room, so girls didn't have a safe space to store their equipment, to change, to shower, and that led a lot of girls to pee in the bushes during their practice or have to run off campus to whatever had the closest restroom. So while we're all struggling for the basic needs that we need to play, the boys were being sent to the mainland off-season for an optional tournament. So just seeing those, it was really obvious that there's gender disparities at my school. And when we would voice our concerns, it felt like the school wasn't listening to us, and it was really, really frustrating because we had scheduled meetings, sent letters, called the superintendent, to which we had little to no response from. So that's why we had to take things to the next level. And I feel like it's also important to note that during one of our meetings with my principal and my athletic director, they threatened to cancel my team season after we just asked them for a pool to practice in.
Wow, that's one hell of a story, right? And so what I'd like us to be able to do now, I'm a big fan of the whole coaching method, right? So we've heard the stories, we're going to break it down a little bit now and align it to the toolkit. So we're going to stay with you, we're going to come to you, Matt, and you were a really key proponent in driving the building of this toolkit. The toolkit has 5 parts to it, okay? We're going to go through each part, give you this headline of it, and let each of the team here tell you their story in that context. So first part of the toolkit, most important thing we need to do, recognize and document the disparity. So without a thorough understanding of the issue, we don't really know what we're dealing with. We can't make a coherent argument to go forward. So in your movement for racial equity in school sport, you did a lot of work on data collection, on the difference in the offerings. How did you go about that? How did you capture the scale of it? And what would you suggest to others that think there's an issue but just don't know how to capture that?
Yeah, so to realize and raise awareness to the issue at firsthand, at first I thought having 2 to 3 sports teams was something that's very normal. I grew up in the South Bronx, and so I saw other schools that had the same problem. And then I talked to my athletic director to get more sports because I was interested in volleyball. And he was like, okay, we did a petition, and then the next year they denied, even though we had the coach and we had the players. And so the athletic director was like, what, why? And so we kept asking that question of why, and it led us to visit other schools across New York City. And many other schools have a lot more sports than ours. And there were schools that had 0. There were schools that had a gym in an auditorium like this. So they played basketball at the top, and the ball would roll all the way down. And so learning about this inequity, it led me to just raise awareness of my issue, talk about it to the students in my school, and then start speaking to other students that want to uplift their stories across the city to speak about this issue.
And how much sort of data collection did you end up having to do?
So there was 0 to none data about New York City, especially with sports distribution. It's very rare to find that. And so we talked to a research network to basically say, like, there's a problem in New York City. Many schools are not having sports. Is it possible that you can get us data on what schools have what amount of sports? And then can you cross research that with race? And they were proudly enough to do it pro bono. It took us like 2 years to get that research, but with that research, it led us to the lawsuit.
Amazing, thank you.
In my experience, social media was a really big agent in recognizing the problem, because a lot of the time stories like mine aren't documented. A girl would get disqualified and would just figure it out for the next meet. So with me, when I shared my story on social media, I was able to find girls that have similar situations to mine. When I was disqualified, a week later in Ohio, another student was disqualified for wearing the hijab. And it's a story that a lot of us don't know, but she reached out to us and she was like, thank you for telling your story. Same thing happened to me. And those messages were filling my DM. And that's when I was able to recognize that it wasn't just something that happened to me randomly, but it's something that happens to Muslim athletes every day in the US.
Amazing. Anything you want to add on to that, Ashley?
No, just from hearing all of our stories, I think we're able to create a sense of unity between all of our struggles, which is really nice to see, but I think it's also really disappointing and shows how much there still is a need to change, because bills have been passed, laws have been passed, and still we're fighting for our basic rights to play a sport and just to do something for fun. We shouldn't have to fight for our right to play.
Absolutely, absolutely. So all 3 of you in some way, shape or form recognized and documented the disparity. So we've got this foundation that says, I feel like something's wrong, something's unequal, and now I'm documenting it, here it is. The next step is building student advocacy. So we'll just build on your point around sharing your story, a single or small group of committed people who care about something. And over time, that community grows. You've been super successful in growing this online, Let Noor Run. If you don't follow the hashtag Let Noor Run, please follow it from now on. What decisions were critical in helping you create that advocacy?
So it was a lot about just staying authentic and true to myself, and understanding that there is no compromise when it comes to like what I believe in. And I think that finding people that are similar-minded, and then also finding people that aren't similar-minded and that have these different diverse ideas. mentorship was so important as a 16-year-old. So like you said, like it was a small group of people, and it still is a small group of people that work on the basic things with Let Noor Run. But finding the greater community, you know, nationally, internationally, and seeing people that care about similar issues and connecting with them and getting personal, you know what I mean? And really like getting to know these people that you're connecting with, then you're able to build a really strong community of individuals that believe in the same things that you do. You know, today I'm with these two wonderful individuals, and I can connect with them, and we can see how we can help each other out.
Superb. Matt, how did it go from Matt and the athletic director to a coalition? How did you build that student advocacy?
I mean, at first, I wanted to raise awareness to the city of New York City. And so I started bringing like some students from my school to testify in front of like the council, the city council and stuff like that. And then after that, like many people started hearing the story, and then there was like news stories about it, and so people started reaching out to us saying like, hey, like I'm an organization that fights for sports too. Can we talk and can we meet? And then eventually it was just a bunch of lawyers and nonprofits that just fought for some sort of equity or justice, and we all came together because of sports. But it was all like, Let Noor Run is amazing, but I wish I used that strategy. We didn't use social media. But I think hearing the stories in person gave the beauty of the movement, and allowed and motivated so many people to just come and support us.
Right, and that's been a theme of the summit so far, you know, from the first panel yesterday to where we are today, giving young people a voice. And so we've got recognizing, documenting the disparity. We move on to building student advocacy. But we can't do this alone, you know. Together we go places we wouldn't go alone. I love that quote. So we recruit the support of champions. That's number 3 in the toolkit. Ashley, every movement hits obstacles. You found some champions in lots of different places, starting with your parents. Your mum has joined us today. I'd love to know a bit more about the role your parents played and the importance of finding trusted adults on this journey of change.
Well, yeah, I can definitely say that throughout this journey, my parents have been my #1 support. And sports in general for my family has been really important. You know, growing up, I've always played sports, even my younger sister. And more often than not, my dad would always be the coach. And it's especially true once I hit high school, because my dad stepped up to be our water polo coach when no one else would. And he also helped us to find other coaches when my school wouldn't help us. He was very helpful with that journey. And naturally, since my dad and I were so involved in the sport, the rest of my family followed along, because my mom was very involved with the team. She was our team mom pretty much all 4 years. And my younger sister really wanted to join after being around the team. So to file this lawsuit, it wasn't a decision that I made alone. It was one that we made together as a family. And I found great comfort and support in that. And I'm very thankful and grateful to have a family that was able to support me in this decision. And for finding adults that would help you, it's a little hard, especially when you're so young. It feels like not a lot of adults, especially after the countless meetings with my school and them not listening or saying they're going to do something, but there was a lot of lack of action with it. So that's why I'm also thankful for the help and support of the ACLU, Simpson Thatcher, and Legal Aid at Work, because they were the first adults outside of my family to actually listen to me, support me, and help represent me and build this case.
Amazing. Noor, you've got an ecosystem of key adults around you. Tell me a bit about them.
So I'm a huge advocate for mentorship, because like I was saying, I was 16, and for my parents, the big thing was, and my mentors, it was like, let's just make sure that Noor can run. You know what I mean? And so I was given that space to be able to run, and the advocacy came later. My only job was to tell my story, and they were handling everything else in the background. It wasn't until I got older that I was able to start, putting my hand in and everything in the background. So, all the change that you see today wouldn't be possible without the adults and the professionals just having a little bit more experience than I do at 16, and then also you're a student, you're an athlete, you have all these different things you're trying to juggle, so it's so important to be those people that step up for your students, as coaches, as parents.
Thank you, Noor. And just shout out to Noor's mum who's here as well. Awesome. Yeah, shout out for Noor's mum as well, yes.
Shout out to the moms.
Yeah.
For the champions, to build your champions, I saw it in every step of the way. First, it was my athletic director when I asked that question. Then it was the students in my school. Then it was the council members. And they're like, yeah, wow, this is a problem. And so the council members started, we did a bill at first, and they were like, whoa, the DOE in New York City is messed up. And so they started championing for us as well. And then they helped us with the lawsuit. So imagine the city council filing a lawsuit against the New York City DOE. Like, it made no sense, but they were champions. Like, they helped us throughout the whole process. And then the nonprofits came, and then Aspen Institute. Like, this is another way that champions helped us throughout just pushing this movement and pushing sports equity.
Amazing. I'm going to just pause here for a moment because we've recognized the disparity, we've built student advocacy, we've got champions around us. And the next stage is identify a legal argument if needed. And I'm just going to pause on that because in every single scenario here, these 3 young people spoke up. They asked to be heard. It didn't have to go as far as it did to a legal matter had they been heard, right? And I just think that's just something for us to take a moment with and go, oh, right, there was an opportunity for us to do the right thing. And I say us because we wield more power than we realize sometimes. So I'm just going to pause on that, allow it to sink in. But then we did have that at the end of that sentence, which is if needed. And it was needed and is needed in all 3 scenarios. So when did you realize, Matt, that a lawsuit was the way forward?
So when I was building my champions with this movement, I partnered with the city council. And so I was like, if the city council can partner with us, why don't we partner with the DOE to make something happen? And there was a lot of conversation, a lot of bureaucracy, and it led nowhere. And that's when we kept having the conversations. They would either push back our meetings, or when we had the meetings, they would talk about something else. And I was like, they're not taking us serious. I mean, like many other adults don't. Like, they don't really take young people seriously in these conversations. And so that's when we were like, you know what? F you. Like, we're gonna do what we want to do.
Right.
Like, so I did the lawsuit.
Ashley.
I think it's been a common theme between all 3 of our stories. We all have unique experiences, but one thing that I realized is really common between all of us is people not listening. And even if they say they're listening, it doesn't feel like they actually are because there's no action behind their words. Especially from what Matt just said, it sounds like he had a lot of meaningless conversations with the DOE. So there needs to be action behind their words. So I feel like that's really important, especially being here with Aspen Institute and getting to meet all these wonderful individuals. We all have a voice, and I think it's important for all of us to listen to each other, and if you have the power and the opportunity to take action for those voices.
What was the moment where you felt, okay, I've asked enough, it's time to take it up to that next level, this is a Title IX class action lawsuit? How did we get to that point?
For me, I think it was that meeting that I had with my DOE and the athletic director, as I mentioned before. It was during that meeting. It was actually one that my team scheduled. The AD and the principal didn't reach out to us at all. And we were just voicing our concerns, asking when we were going to have a pool because we had our game the next week and we haven't had any pool time. And they ended up threatening to cancel our season 3 times. So after facing that kind of retaliation and after voicing our concerns so many times, because there's been letters, calls, emails, after that is when I said, that's enough, I can't take it, and we shouldn't have to deal with this.
And how did you go about identifying a legal argument? So you know that you need to take it next steps, but who else was in that story that helped you identify the legal argument?
I think my mom was really important with this aspect because, like, as Noor said before, we're like 16, 17 at the time. We don't really know what to do. And my mother had reached out to the ACLU. There was DOE meetings in which they had representatives from each sport, each girls' sport, the co-captains, and the DOE was going to interview us and ask us about our experience. But at that point, none of us had parental, the parents had approved for that. And we had no legal representation, so at that point, my mom stepped in and said, you know, this isn't right, and we need legal representation because the way the DOE was going about it felt very sneaky, and like they're trying to catch us and manipulate our words to what they want to hear. So at that point is when the ACLU of Hawaii stepped in. Brilliant. And they've been a really great support and very, very helpful because without them, we wouldn't have been able to build this case.
Amazing. And in the toolkit, there are links to various organisations that will help students mobilising, identify legal arguments, as well as legal aid support. So make sure you use the toolkit for that. Noor, a little bit about the legislative journey you've been on. Talk us through it a bit.
So with us, we wanted to have a conversation with the Ohio Athletic Association. And the conversation wasn't being had. They were changing the rules a lot, and that's what we noticed, is that their rule books are so subject to change, and that it's almost like they're writing the rules in pencil, and then the next day they'll erase it and put a different rule. So one thing that we recognized was that laws are so much harder to change. You have to go through committee, you have to go through the Senate and the House before you can even change the name of a law. So that's why we said, okay, let's pass this law that's going to affect not only student athletes, but any student that wants to participate in extracurricular activities, and it's like much less subject to change. And that's where we saw the problem with working with the Athletic Association in Ohio.
And so how did you go from working with the Athletic Association to the House and the Senate? Talk us through that.
So similarly to Ashley and Matt, the conversation never happened. We were continuously trying to have a conversation with them. And we would hear about their rules being changed from other sources, and then we would look at them and we'd say, well, that's not right either. So that's when we met with Senator Teresa Gavarone. And we actually showed her the rule book before and after and the changes that they made, and her being someone that's wrote many laws, she was like, this is not right. So she recognized that. Again, like champions that are adult champions that are going to help you. Senator Teresa was one of those, and we just had coffee with her. And recognizing that your state representatives and the people that work in your local governments, they're working for you. You vote for them, they're here, they want to hear from their constituents. So that's something that I learned from this experience. And then she said, okay, let's write this bill.
Amazing, amazing. So all of that leads us to taking action for change. We've all got to take a stand at some point. That moment comes along, and I guess when you're being told we're going to cancel a season, that's pretty scary. Like, to get to that point to press for change where you feel like there's some risk involved, and it's not just you, it's your teammates around you. So what was that moment that allowed you to take the stand, but also do it publicly and go for that? If you haven't read it, there is an incredible New York Times article about Ashley and the incredible stand that she's taken. That takes courage, the courage that Kevin told us about yesterday. What was the straw that broke the camel's back that allowed you to speak publicly about it?
For me, I think we just stayed anonymous for a long time because at the time that we first filed, me and the other plaintiffs, we were all minors and we were still in high school. So because of those previous meetings and previous retaliation, we felt that if we went public then we would face negative consequences because of that, which is really unfortunate. But it wasn't until the New York Times reached out to us that we decided to go public. And I feel like if you're from Hawaii, and from Ewa Beach, it's not that hard to figure out who the plaintiffs are. So it's not that we're keeping it super under discretion, but since our case is still ongoing, we do have to keep certain things under wraps. But yeah, I didn't realize until the New York Times asked for an interview and wrote that article, like how big it is, like what I'm doing, because to me I'm just a girl from Eva Beach and I'm just working with my community, and I didn't realize what this could mean nationwide, especially for so many other young girls. I didn't fully realize the impact until that article was out, and I had other news stations reaching out to me and other outlets for interviews and wanting to share my story. So I think it was a really great opportunity. I'm glad that we took that, because of that, I'm here and I'm able to share my story, and I hope this inspires like other young girls or other like just young athletes and people of color and different minority groups to speak up and take action.
Certainly inspires me to do it. Amazing. We've got one question coming through, and I'm definitely going to come to it. I'm just going to remind you all of those five principles that we've talked about, just so we can embed that process. So recognize and document the disparity, know what we're talking about. Build student advocacy, no one does this alone. Recruit the support of champions, people that have influence and power that can take your argument forward to places that you can't take it on your own. Identify a legal argument, if needed. And if you're ever stuck on the legal argument, just think about what Mary Harvey was talking to us about earlier, the human rights of these young people, of all of us. And we also have Project Play's Children's Bill of Rights as well. And then finally, taking action for change, standing up and saying what we're talking about. So those are the 5 things. Please check out the toolkit. Matt has absolutely driven that on behalf of Project Play, and he's worked closely with Vince and team to make it a real thing, so that these 3 young people who have experienced things they never should have a toolkit to know what to do next and to create change. So just huge props to you 3 for sharing your story and bringing that through. So I'm going to go to questions. Please send them through. The first one.
I was going to ask, before we go into that, I think I just want to say one last thing. I would say for the taking action part, taking action is in every step of the way that we did what we did, was the conversations, was the lawsuits, was posting on social media. And that's the final step of this toolkit, but it's every step of this toolkit as well. Yeah. And I think it's every step that everyone can take in this audience as well. You do not have to be a student to take action. You could be anyone. And you could be a part of the NBA, you could be a rugby coach. But I think you taking the first initial steps of just having a conversation and then transforming that into action is what's important.
Okay, Brian, thank you for your question. Your 3 cases are tremendously inspiring, but they also piss me off that you had to go to court to remedy. How did you all turn your initial anger into positive change, and how can we help our own kids do the same? Who'd like to go first on that?
I can start. Like after that meeting that I've mentioned previously, I was really upset, and so was the rest of my team. So I think that was a key moment for me, because I didn't want other girls to have to go through what I did. That I didn't deserve that, and they definitely don't deserve to do that. And if you're from Hawaii, you know that it's a very small community, and a lot of people tend to get like stuck in their ways, and not a lot of people speak up against change there. So I really wanted to speak up and invoke that much needed change. And at the time, my sister was an incoming freshman, and she was planning on playing the same sports that I did. So I didn't want her, especially, she was my main motivation. I didn't want her to have to deal with what I did. It's not fair to her, and it wasn't fair to me.
I would say it was like the same situation. I have a little sister, and I wasn't going to tell this story. I was going to go to practice the next day and forget about it and just get my waiver signed. But it was my older sister that said, no, we have a responsibility to pave the way for our younger sister. So I think finding something and something that you're passionate about and saying that's the reason why I'm making this change. Because it's easy to say, like, I'm going to graduate in 2 years. And it's fine, like I'm good. But to find the next generation and the next people that it's going to affect, I think that's how you're able to make change and continue to like go on it. For me, it's been 3 years. Matt, it's been since he was 14. Same with Ashley, since high school. So it's like, how do you continue, like, keep going with this narrative and with this story? And it's finding those people, like your younger sister, my younger sister, that you know it's going to affect, you know, coming up, and just thinking about the next generation.
So anger to positive change comes through really identifying who we're doing the change for and the passion that comes with that.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
I think to draw attention to the how can we help our own kids do the same, we all can say the same thing, is that we felt that there was people in our lives that gave us leadership roles and gave us confidence to do what we do and did at the time. And so I had a teacher, and I had the lawyers and the athletic directors that just came to me, and they're like, what do you want to do about it? I'll make it happen. And so they made a dream become a reality. And I think for all of our messages, I think your mom did that for you, and your sister did that for you. Yeah. So we all have that one person that just allowed us to dream about something that we wanted and made sure it happened.
Yeah. There's like a real power in storytelling and dialogue. And the other side of it is people listening. So if you want to help your kids, you want to help the youth in your community, listen to their concerns, listen to what they want to come out of sport and to come out of what they're doing and what they love.
Amazing. Yeah, far away.
Hey, so my name is, hey everybody, my name is Nancy Hogshead, and I'm a civil rights lawyer, and this is what we do. And I just want to say one more resource. I just went on to see if it was there. Is we document every single school in the country, both high school and college. We've been doing college for about 3 years. This is going to be in the next week or so, our first time doing a high school. How many sports opportunities that they need to have. So, and we've written letters to every single school in the country with beautiful legal memos. But here's the thing, unless we have you, I am powerless. I need people who are willing to say, yes, let's sue.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, as good as the law is for both race discrimination, sex discrimination, religious discrimination, as good as it is, the major people who have the power to be able to change it is not me, no matter how good the law is, it is you. So 12 to 22-year-olds are the ones that have to make it happen. So typically, one of you all would call us, and we would run through, here's what it takes, and here's what the law says, and if you're worried about this, don't be, and that kind of stuff. And then, we sort of launch them off to an attorney. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for what you guys have done and are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Our website is championwomen.org, and you can get every single school at Title9Schools.com. TITLEIX schools.com.
She's so right about that, because it's something that I've seen. We passed the law in Ohio, and the law also passed in Indiana and Maryland. Why Indiana and Maryland? Because similar cases like mine came to light, and those students were able to go and testify. And it was a problem that they recognized in their state. So the more that we tell those stories, the more that we reach out to people like you, then the more we can get these laws, because it's recognized as a problem, and you can connect a person to it.
Right.
Like a story.
And to that point, inspiration comes from the emotional connection. I'm going to turn the conversation a bit, because we've talked a lot about the service you are all doing to your community, to society. I really want to talk about the three of you for a moment, okay? You've done something, I knew I was going to cry. It always happens with these three. You've done something remarkable. What's happened to you as a result of it? What have you learnt about yourself? What have you learned about yourself that you didn't like, and what have you learned that you did like, maybe? But just tell us a bit about how this experience has changed you as an individual.
I think it made me a lot braver, and recognized that I can do this. I also run marathons, and I've channeled the same bravery and strength that I've used to get me through these 3 years to be able to run a marathon. And I think that's what these 3 years gave me, and I wouldn't I wouldn't change it, and I wouldn't like trade it for anything, because I believe everything happens for a reason. And so it gave me this bravery and this strength that's able to get me through anything, and I'm able to use that.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think very similarly to you. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself. Most of all, I feel like out of this, I've become more empowered, especially as a woman of color from a small island. The fact that I'm able to do this and actually make a change and to be here with all of you, I feel like I've gained a lot of confidence, and especially right now, with all that's going on with women's rights, I feel like I'm able to make a change in this one part and make the trail easier for girls after me.
Amazing. Matt?
I think this is something that I like and I dislike. I think what I've learned is that now I feel like I deserve things, and it could be a bad thing at times, but in these conversations, it's a really good thing. I was so inspired yesterday when I heard Pepper speak. 12 years old, being a sports journalist, who can imagine that? It's just the power of being able to do whatever you want and dream and making it into reality was instilled in my head. And I love it. I'm addicted to it.
Amazing. I'm into it too. I love it. I love it. All right. Okay, this is a good question. Thank you, Andrew. There's a lot of energy in the world right now that tells people that they can't change the circumstances that they're in. How did you overcome the inertia of inaction that day where you were sitting there in the car on the way home feeling so sad, when you're there going, I play water polo, but I'm not allowed in a pool, when you asked to play volleyball? How did you overcome the inertia of, oh my God, this is a massive thing?
Yeah, it's so true. Because my biggest problem when I was 16, I didn't want to go to practice and everyone talk about it. You know what I mean? It's I just wanted to be quiet. I just wanted to keep my head down and keep going. Because it's you don't want the buzz, you don't want. So, to overcome that, like I said earlier, it's just, you have to recognize that it's bigger than you and that those moments will pass. I'll eventually be out of high school. I eventually won't be on that cross-country team anymore, and that moment will pass where I feel a little bit embarrassed or whatever. All that passes, and just recognizing that I'll be somewhere else one day, and that we'll see some real change out of this, and it'll be better for people after me.
Amazing. Matt?
I think we cause a thunderstorm.
We are powerful.
With this conversation.
You are powerful.
How did I overcome the inaction? It was the toolkit. That's exactly what we're talking about. Finding my champions, finding my people, building awareness. The DOE didn't do anything, so we said F you. You want me to keep repeating it? But we just found many different ways and different actions. When one person said no, then we went to the next route, right? We found every possible way to make this happen, and at the end of the day, I won. And we are winning, being a part of this conversation.
Yeah, similar to Noor's story, it's you're so down in that moment, on your way home, you're just sitting there thinking about it. But I think it's really easy for a lot of people to get stuck in that inaction and, like Noor said, to keep our heads down and just keep moving forward. But for me, I just think about, is this the future that I want to move forward? Especially for younger girls after me, other student athletes, they shouldn't have to go through that. And a lot of people don't know what to do, and that's why, like Matt was saying, this toolkit is so important, because it shows the resources, the steps, and it's really a guide for students, and actually not even just students, for everyone to recognize the disparities and how to push through it and make actual change. So I think that, at the time I didn't have that kind of resource, and it would have been really helpful. So I think it's great that now we have this and a lot of people can access it and use that.
Amazing. So we've heard about these incredible stories. You've all sat here and listened to them. Not everyone has listened to them, as we know. So I know that one of the big messages today from all of you, and you've already said it, so I'm going to ask you to come up with something else in a minute, is the big message is listen to what you are being told. And if you're not being told anything, ask the question. Ask the question of these young people. Let them lead the change. It is their world. We are caretakers right now, and we are all doing the best we can, but I think these guys are showing us actually the world that they want to create. So you have a bunch of, listen, I can't see you, so I'm going to go with a bunch of averagely young, but not as young as these people, sitting in the audience. What do they need to know? And I'm going to start with you, Ashley.
My mic is off again. Hello?
You got it.
Okay, turn back on. Like Arby was saying, it's so important to listen to us and our stories, and it's so inspiring to see people younger than me here telling their stories. So I think not only is it important to listen, but to take action. Like we've discussed, it's not just empty promises and meaningless conversations. If you have the opportunity, the resources, and you're in the position to help, I don't see why you shouldn't help.
Absolutely. Matt?
I think we've all said it best, bring young people to leadership roles, learn about them, what do they want, and make sure it happens. And then bring the conversation to the place that it doesn't want to happen. So whereas we are having this conversation together, and we all love sports, but who are the people that do not want this to happen? And then have that conversation there, and then bring the young people there.
Yeah, awesome.
I think also encouraging your youth to show up to everything that they do as their full authentic self. That's something that's helped me get through, and just understanding that I wear hijab and this is a part of who I am. And I think that if we can encourage our youth in whatever way that they're unique to show up as their full authentic self and support them through that in everything that they do, and encourage passion and encourage ideation and encourage them to follow their dreams and, start something new, even if it's, making their own recipe to bake cookies. Right. You know what I mean? Like, encourage ideation, I think, is so important, and innovation in your homes and with your students and your athletes.
Amazing. It is a privilege to share space with you, to work with you. Whilst this panel is called Mobilizing Students for Action, we can reverse that and say this is students mobilizing for action and doing it. Noor, Ashley, Matt, please give them a huge round of applause. Yeah. Matt wants a selfie with everyone.
Let me take a selfie. Let me get my phone.
He basically thinks he is Ellen at the Oscars right now, and we are going to channel that and let him do it. So if you guys want to come down to the front, and we're going to get this selfie in with everyone. Get involved, show support, come on down.
Let's go. Youth panel in Aspen, we have to take a selfie.
I don't think you should bolt over. There's health and safety.
Not too jumpy, you don't have to jump over.
Yeah.
This is the first selfie. Yeah, I'll take it.
Turn around.
Take it.
Turn around. You got it. See what you can do. Are we in? All
Is
right.
everyone in?
Hands up. We're in.
Hands up, please.
All right. Good job. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Like that's what you want.